I think we are live. I'm going to do the quick check, team, but welcome. You might be able to see it. Hello to the audience out there. This worked yesterday, so I'm hoping it works again. So hi, everybody. We are on day 2 of me trying this whole LinkedIn Live situation, and I've got my next 2 guests that are going to join us. And actually, one of these guests helped me create the name that you see in the corner up here. So I will say thank you to Carol, because we were having a good old time with this. But I want the team to everyone introduce themselves here. So I'm going to have Carol and Rags introduce themselves, talk a little bit, and then we'll get into some where we at, what happened, how did we meet, and then where are we going in life. So anyhow, Carol, I guess you started off because you did help me with the name. So I'm going to have you go first. All right.
I was so excited to be in the Cyber Saloon. I grew up on Western, so I love this so much. It was a great name up front, and it was a very easy connection. So I'm Carol House, thrilled to be here, and I've had the privilege of working with Rags actually for quite some time. So an absolute titan in the cyberspace. But I've spent 3 tours at the White House, 1 at the Office of Management and Budget in their Cyber and National Security unit, and then also 2 in the National Security Council tours, focusing on things like standing up our counter ransomware campaign and President Biden's last cybersecurity executive order that drove a bunch of innovative work to try to help streamline government policy and leveraging the billions of dollars of purchasing power of the government to be a driver and a market force in promoting better practices in software security, leveraging AI for better security, and ensuring that AI is in fact secure on its own, and also driving implementation of things like state-of-the-art encryption and making sure that we're ready for the post-quantum moment. So that was my most recent stint in government. I spent a lot of time in anti-money laundering stuff at Treasury and hunting down cyber criminals, some time on the Hill at Senate Homeland. And before all that was an Army officer. So both Rags and I are vets. But when I was in the Army, I did chem bio-rad nuclear defense and was an intelligence collection manager. So everything that watches and listens to people was kind of my jam. So I've been in an interesting nexus of wherever technology is being leveraged and exploited by bad guys, that's where I've wanted to sit.
And we haven't even got to Rags story. Can I be you when I grow up? I mean, I know we've all done great things, but man, I always sit back and I'm like, wow, it's just really incredible where people have done and where they've come from. And I'm just sitting there like, all right, I'm ready to hear more.
Okay. So if I was one of the truly, if I was one of the truly cool kids, like at the event you just planned, I would have my avatar introduce me, because that's what apparently the cool kids do. And the avatar, if it was me, would be using his resident radio voice to talk about Rags.
I'm telling you, Rags, I would like you to come as I get bigger. I'm going to have you guys come with me, because I just want you to introduce me. If that was the rest of your job for the rest of your life, I know I could be your agent and book you. Actually, just, you know what? If you want an agent booker, I will find everyone that will let you do, because that was incredible. And okay. I was just like, and I hadn't met Carol fully at that point. And you got on stage and introduced her. And I was like, 1, I need Rags to introduce me everywhere. 2, oh my gosh, Carol is incredible. I cannot wait to talk to her after this whole thing. We have only had a few conversations at that point. We just barely knew each other. And I'm like, all right, she's going to be my best friend. Just
It was so great, y'all. I realizing that how much of the audience may not have been at the conference. Rags introduced me with a wrestler announcer's voice. I had kind of joked, but kind of not joked that that was a dream of mine to be introduced that way, and he did it and was magnificent. It was amazing. So sorry to talk over you, Rags. You have many an amazing skill set and career and accomplishments, but goodness, that is an amazing feature that you also have.
Well, actually, it relates very much to, I'm not going to run you through. I'm an old guy. I've been in I've had 50 years nearly of professional life, and I'm not going to run you through the whole litany. I will say this, though. I am thrilled beyond thrilled. I've known, as Shannon, I've come to know you actually last month, and you're awesome and amazing. But Carol, to be in an event with Carol, who I've known for years and seen the consequential work she's done, and she does so with she realizes that while the work is so damn important, we don't need to take ourselves too seriously, right? We don't need to drain the joy out of every day just because we're dealing with difficult, complex, challenging, vexing problems. we can still bring some joy. And Carol obviously does that. Shannon, we're like birds of a feather here. So to
Totally.
the extent that, running through what I've been able to do or not do, my wife jokes that I can't keep a job. and in fact, and what I say to her is, I don't want to. See? Because Carol and I are both vets. And one of the things that the military does, and they don't speak to the benefits to the extent I think they should, is they put you in hard jobs, and you gotta fake it until you can make it. You gotta learn. You gotta grow. We all have the imposter syndrome. Let's be honest. We all do to some extent or another. We're all imposters. But in the first year, it's like really hard, and you're just trying to keep a brave face, but you're not really sure what to do in any job, really, let's be honest. And then you learn and you leverage, you learn from the people you work with, you take on the challenges you learn, like, oh, I can actually do this work. I can actually make a contribution. I can learn what I need to learn to do the job that I'm called to do. But you do that for 2 or 3 years, and then you get comfortable. And that's not where we need to be. Life is not supposed to be easy, right? The couch is where dreams go to die. So if we're comfortable.
Instead of the couch to 5K, the couch is where dreams go to die. Let's do the couch to 5K now.
Okay. So, 40 years in the Department of Defense, 40 years, 30 in uniform, 3 deployments, was really, was able to work at in senior levels at West Point. My last job there was vice dean for education, so with oversight over the entire curriculum at a very important institution during a critical period of time. I left there, went to DARPA, was a DARPA program manager. Loved that. Was more imposter syndrome. I was wondering, because there's the smartest and the brightest. Oh my Lord. They are so good, and the staff is so good. And they, with about 125 government personnel, that's all, they influence the expenditure of $4.4 billion of really consequential research. And I won't want to run you through all of the contributions to DARPA, but it's a cool place to be. It's a cool place to work. It's cool people to know. And I had that great opportunity to spend some time there. Went to went to Texas A&M, established their cybersecurity program. Thought I was going to be here. I'm here in Texas now forever. Even told my bride that. Said, honey, you've moved 22 times. You've followed me around and supported me and done all that you've done. So we're going to go to Texas and we're going to put down deep roots and we're never going to leave. Famous last words. I got a call 4 years later. They want a role in the Pentagon that, as it turns out, I tried to turn down, but they convinced me. Principal director for cyber at the time, and I leveled up.
They gave you an offer you couldn't refuse. Let's be honest.
Then we were supposed to come back to Texas, but of course, life happens. Got the opportunity to be in a senior role in a medium-sized defense industrial base company doing really interesting work. Got a real appreciation for the bottom line, which you really don't get when you're a government employee, a federal employee. And then got at the tail end of this long, I got requested to serve a role along with Carol, as it turns out. She was in National Security Council. I was working, and then ONCD. I worked at the Office of National Cyber Director in working the workforce issues. So incredible opportunity. I think we moved the needle. I think we made a difference. We had influence on the AI executive order, trustworthy and secure AI, which we know has recently been superseded. And hopefully that's something we can get a chance to talk about here today.
Yeah, I'm up for it. I think we talk about anything that's really something striking for you guys, but also where are we going with a lot of this stuff, right? We were chatting about, your history and what you guys have, which is, to be honest, is absolutely incredible. And I'm so excited that, one, I got to meet both of you in person. 2, now you guys are my friends and you're stuck with me for life. You're stuck. It's a done deal. I didn't know if you knew that when you signed up for the conference, the fine print, friendship for life.
I, I didn't know, but I'm glad of it.
I
I'll
know
try
you
to
got
learn.
it. You just do it. No, but it's incredible because your experience. But you guys are, when you meet you in person, you want to share that experience, but you also want to learn, right? And that's one of the things I really would love to recap with both of you, because I know both of you guys were thrilled about the students in the room, right? And I was big on making sure we had students in the room, we had vets in the room. I'm a daughter of a father who was 22 years Air Force, right? And then went into industry afterwards. I watched both my parents get educated. Actually, Carol didn't know this. I don't know if Rags, you knew this. Both my parents were in the audience for 2 days. I think
Oh,
you
is
met
that
my
right?
parents.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah,
That
both
is
of
so
my
cool.
parents were there for 2 days, and so you probably did meet my parents.
I
And
did actually. I knew that, and I had to recollect. I met both your mom and dad at the social the night before.
the night before, yes, yes. Well, and so they were quiet though, which is funny because I have such a big personality. I am slightly an introvert, which you don't see all the time. There is those moments where I go in my timeout corner, but I am very much an extrovert. And so it was fun to see my parents there because my parents have never seen me in this world the same way. Now, both my parents have I've watched them get educated. I watched them own a company. I watched them go from nothing to everything. I was a military tour brat, so I've done the tour without being in the military. And so I've experienced that whole world, but it was really cool for them to see and hear from like this group. And they're like, holy cow, how do you know these people? How did you get into that circle? Or what I didn't know you knew that. Like, it was kind of cool afterwards, but then my mom goes, nah, it was known you were going to do something like this. This is who you are. So, like,
Oh, that's
so
great.
I'm
Oh,
excited that you guys are here. But I really want to talk about, from your perspective, what was your thoughts on the conference? And really kind of, would you do this again if, I decided to do it again? And what did you think about the students? Because I know the students absolutely loved you guys. I've had more people come back to me and say, oh my gosh, can I learn more from them?
Oh, well,
Go ahead, Carol.
yeah,
Please.
like I love students, and ultimately Rags is going to have such a great like perspective, given him like being tip of the spear on the work that's been needed and being done on the cyber workforce side. And it really starts at such young ages. And so like being able to touch directly like that ecosystem. And it was really cool because like a lot of my favorite people from government, from prior government and existing government were there, in with a lot of students and also in with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm currently an entrepreneur. I'm standing up this advisory practice focused on strategic technologies meets national security meets econ and financial innovation. Like that sweet spot at the center of those three things is really where I'm at. And so much of that was represented in the room, whether it's, again, like the research and development happening at academic institutions and what students are trying to drive, as well as, like we had a pretty fun debate and discussion, even like that started to kick off at the end around the infrastructure as a service executive order that was issued by President Trump in his first term, upheld by President Biden, and like is still in place under Trump this time. And like some of the interesting dynamics and discussions around what it takes to really drive something that I've been really engaged on, which is what are the democracy primitives as well as accountability primitives that you need in the future building blocks of digital economies, which I feel are information and infrastructure and identity. Like those three pillars are huge. And I think they're very tough, and they're ones that we've not been very good at getting strategic policy that really aligns a common North Star across all three of them. There's some areas where discussions are happening, but not everything is all totally aligned. And so it was a really fun opportunity to talk about that, as well as talk about really concrete things that are happening in the cyber domain. Like my keynote, I talked about the issues of course, like Iran in the wake of this fragile ceasefire and everything that's been occurring. Everyone's been waiting for potential, continued confrontations in the cyber domain, which Iran has done for years, and leveraging their proxies and ransomware and other activities targeting Americans and critical infrastructure. But ultimately, I talked about lessons from, of course, military history, because why not? And how I felt that there were lessons from the Battle of Thermopylae, so very timely, is ancient Greece. But in thinking about how we're dealing with adversaries of great offensive scale and distribution versus a pretty fragmented defense that we have for critical infrastructure in the U.S. Like, I think that there's lessons that we can take from other forms of warfare outside of cyber, and thinking about what kind of defensive posture that we really need and cooperation with industry. Thinking about things like terrain advantages, like physical terrain, but also digital terrain and choke points that we inherently have in partnership with industry. Like, I think talking about those and like how do you maintain tactical agility and resilience and recoverability where cyber meets physical? Like, it's a confluence of an emerging of lots of different issues that already exist that we deal with in the physical domain of like emergency response and cyber, but like where the two really have, like, that connective tissue and fabric really hasn't been coordinated as strongly as we need. It's been something that we've been trying to build and focus on, but why it's so great to have students in the room that are thinking about the future of how they build the technology and policy that allows for that connective tissue, but then also the industry and entrepreneurs and people that are being targeted, and the ones whose infrastructure is being used in the exploit, and industry who are creating the solutions to stop it. Like, industry, like on either of those three vectors, is tip of the spear, is front lines in the fight. So it was really cool. It's like I think the conference was great.
Well, and so that goes back to, I loved it because you talk about the last one, but I know you really liked the debate that was happening. But as you're bringing that one up, it still reminds me of you and Rob Lee being on stage at lunchtime and having a fireside chat. And Rob Lee goes, I know we're talking about AI, guys, but doesn't everyone realize that we have an infrastructure issue that we also need to talk about? So it kind of lines at that point where you're sitting there saying, we keep forgetting these other aspects that are just as important, and we keep moving forward, but we're leaving all of this behind. And if this crumbles, it doesn't matter how far you move forward, you're not going to have anything to stand on. So I'm intrigued in what you think on that, because I know you were like, I saw your face light up when he said that. It's like,
yes,
that's what he said.
Absolutely. Like, I'm delighted that everyone's excited about AI, and sometimes I do wonder if we live in a simulation, since like the three very technical areas that I've worked in, so financial crime and fraud, cybersecurity, and chem bio rad nuclear, are like the three areas that AI presents a very specific problem for right now already. And so it's like there are things from a national security perspective that I'm very concerned about with AI. But also, I do feel that, like, at the moment, AI isn't presently the giant vulnerability, the way that our like decades old infrastructure is absolutely being leveraged and exploited, and where we've spent decades not investing in upgrading that. And ultimately, that is where we're concerned about adversarial actors like Vault Typhoon that are pre-positioning on, like, you tell me if you care about these sectors: water, transportation, communications, energy. Like, these are
Maybe
really just a little bit. So I love that point, that I'm concerned that there's so much money and investment and focus, and I'm excited about it too. There's so much economic potential with AI, but ultimately, gosh, I wish we could get something else that I had written about before I returned to the NSC was about the national security investment imperative, which includes investment in our infrastructure. That's not something that's made it in, like, when you had ESG making it into people's, like, boardroom meetings and talking points about what their investment portfolios needed to look like and what their corporate governance needed to look like. Why not national security and thinking about investing in this infrastructure, especially given the kind of threats that we're facing in the next couple of years?
It's so true. It's so true. And Rex, you were on stage too. I know we talked about your announcement, but you had joined them as well. And that was the fun part. Like, what's your take? Because I know you're taking a big stand on AI, right? I know your 30, 40 years of experience doing all of this and hearing things that most of us, think we know, but we don't know anything, right? And so what's your take on all of this?
Yeah. So first of all, three-part answer here, right? So I am going to talk about the event and what I took away. I'm going to talk about students in particular, because this is my jam. This is why God put me on this earth, to put me in a classroom. And my wife again reminds you that, like, you're not in a classroom now. I said, yeah, we'll get there. All right. So, and then talk about AI and critical infrastructure. So there's a lot, and Carol covered the landscape extremely well already. So, but what about the event itself? So I will bring quotes. I will bring some damn quotes because, I don't have a whole lot of original thought. But I think I may have alluded to Maya Angelou's quote, that people forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so this event made me feel two things. Made me feel joy, for one, because it was so damn much fun. There was a lot of lighthearted moments. There was some really wonderful social engagements and connective tissue there. It was just a hell of a lot of fun. I'm just going to say that. I had fun, enjoyed it more than any other event I've ever been to. Okay, not a professional event. Had more fun at maybe social.
I get it. Weddings and other stuff might be a little bit more entertaining, but at least we made cyber and risk fun, and that is hard to do.
Did we, take this problem seriously? Don't take ourselves too seriously. It's always been my approach to anything. Why drain the joy out of all? I had Carol and I both have deployed. I spent a year in Iraq at the largest doing the base defense and based operations for the largest coalition base in the world, and it was a deadly serious mission. But there were some lighthearted moments, and it got us through the day. And so these are not incompatible. And I think your event really hit home in that respect. Very serious issues for the love of God. I mean, we do have tremendous cyber risks. So there's a global cyber risk conference. We're talking about cyber risk. Carol highlighted, I think we need to really continue to look hard, invest, and create incentives and underscore the national security implications of having vulnerable critical infrastructures. We can turn U.S. opinion on a dime if we turn off the water, right? I mean, when the American people, you cannot last very long without water. 3 days is what they say. So we interrupt that supply, put it at risk. A nation state, perhaps wanting to influence American foreign policy or even military action. This is a grave vulnerability, and we have to take it seriously. We have to address it head on. And so to that extent, amen. Again, I say amen. The critical infrastructure must be more resilient. The government has a role to incentivize the hardening of those facilities in some respect, and also the ability to respond rapidly in the context of a emerging threat. We talk about the grid a lot. The grid is designed to be resilient, like from Jump Street. And even so, squirrels, apparently the most pernicious threat to the grid are squirrels. And there was another
it's leaves up here in Massachusetts. The trees take down we're done.
Yeah.
We had a snowstorm one October and everyone lost power. You don't get snow in October with heavy leaves. The power grid, they shut the whole thing down for a week.
Yeah.
It was cold.
Yeah, tree strikes and squirrels are apparently the biggest threat. But, these are acts of God, so to speak. If we had a determined sentient beings that are trying to not just have an event that caused a cascading failure, but an event that complements an event because we've got a human actor behind it. But I wanted to sum up this question about the students. So I perspective teaching forever, actually, in a way that I used it as a basis of I was responsible for the teacher prep sessions at West Point. So we bring in typically the career military officers at the 6 or 7 year point, put them in grad school, put them in the classroom. So they don't really have a lot of educational experience, right? They've trained troops and soldiers around the world, but we started them off with this quote, and it was William Butler Yeats. And education is not about the filling of a pail, it's about the lighting of a fire. And I read that I read that quote before I walk into any classroom. I have it printed off in a variety of places, and I read that quote before I walk in because I consider that to be my job, not to go in and fill buckets, but to go in and try to inspire those souls that are putting their time and effort into learning knowledge and acquiring skills that are going to make a consequential difference, that they need to see the importance and the value of what they're doing in that classroom. And I see that as a responsibility, as a moral imperative, right? And so that's what you did for these students. Every one of these students was lit up with excitement, with enthusiasm. They say, wow, what I'm doing here matters. What I'm doing here is going to make a difference. What I'm doing here is going to help me make the world a better place. And that's an inspiring message. And students will respond to that. They will respond if we don't drain the joy out of learning. In some respects, this is not all about technology, but we have a dearth of talent pursuing technical degrees. U.S. persons, we don't have enough U.S. persons pursuing STEM discipline degrees. Is that saying that policy is not important? Of course it is. That law is not important. Of course it is. That business is not important. Of course it is. That philosophy is not important. Of course it is. But we need more students. It's a national security imperative to pursue STEM disciplines, and not to we have to be careful as we look at current policies and practices. We depend upon for international students coming to our prestigious universities and actually across the whole spectrum of universities, because they bring talent, they bring drive, they bring experience, and they're not taking seats away from U.S. persons. I want to make sure that's clear. We're like, we should put up barriers and make it hard for them to come here, hard to get visas, make it not, no incentive for them to stay. They are filling seats that would go vacant. So it's not an or. It's not American talent or international talent. That's the tyranny of the or. In technical terms, that's the tyranny of the XOR for those that are geeky and technical. That's the tyranny of the XOR. But we need the genius of the and. We need to build programs that attract young men and women and mid-career and even seniors to pursue disciplines that are going to make a difference. And at the same time, continue to have a vibrant pipeline of international talent that will come in and will beat a path. They continue to beat a path to our door, to many of our prestigious universities. We have the best university system in the known universe. That doesn't mean there's not great universities in the European Union and in India, and yes, in China. They have great institutions, but in the aggregate, we have the best, and consequently, they beat a path to our door. So let's be welcoming, let's be inviting, and because that's not at counter purposes with inspiring young men and women that are U.S. persons to pursue those same studies.
Well, we have the ability to do things some can't, right? You test out in other countries and you may not be able to go back into those studies. So they come here to do it. It's true. But I think a lot of people don't understand that. So I'm glad you brought it up, because people don't truly understand those nomenclatures about what is here and the ability that is here and where we need to go with it. So it's fascinating to hear that perspective, because I understand what you mean, right? And I know it, but that's because I've also seen things around the world that most people do not understand or see, right? Going on vacation in another country doesn't mean you understand what's happening behind the scenes with the culture, right? So you've got to kind of understand two sides of the coin. And we're not the only ones that are impacted on infrastructure and other aspects, right? But a lot of times we're driving the research and development that then gets deployed elsewhere.
Yeah, continue to drive. And just for, because this is a figure that's not well appreciated, 70% of grad students in engineering programs across our tier one, R1 is the technical term, universities, are non-US, 70%. So this is whether we like that figure or don't like that figure, it really doesn't matter. If we were to shut down that pipeline, we would shutter, and with two T's, not two D's, we would shutter the research programs that are driving innovation across our great nation, across the globe, because we will not have the talent to do the work. Just solely resting upon the shoulders of the young men and middle career folks that are pursuing studies that happen to be U.S. citizens. So it will always be, and even if we substantially increase the numbers of U.S. persons, we still want that talent to come from across the seas, because it brings diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, and gets us to better places. It is to be leveraged, not to be denigrated.
I love it. I love it. So, where are we going in life, guys? What are we doing? What's the next stage of this? Because I know you guys have both left office, starting new careers. So where are we going with our lives? I know, Carol, you brought up a little bit of starting a consulting company, but let's hear about the next big phase of this and why it's important to you, right? Because you guys are mission driven. That's what I love about you. You have a mission, vision, and purpose, right? We all do. That's what we do. My whole background's acting up on me here, but what is it that's driving you right now, and why? Let's hear it. Who wants to go first? Who's up?
Go, Carol.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I don't know, I mentioned it before, basically where I'm focusing all of my work, whether it's the consulting work that I'm doing at Penumbra Strategies, or through board work that I'm doing with nonprofits, as well as with board work with some regulatory agencies that I've been advising, and then also with some for-profit companies. Again, it's really that issue of where strategic technologies meet national security and meet economic and financial innovation. To me, there's an understanding generally widely that I'm delighted has been adopted and recognized, that the future of competition is really waged on the battleground of economic competition as well as technology competition. Understanding that there's a huge overlap between the two, right? Tech is an inherent underlying feature of our economy, and our thriving tech sector is a huge pillar and boon for the U.S. So to me, why I've decided not to go in-house somewhere, because there's so many cool companies that are doing amazing things, but I don't just want to be involved with one company. I want to help so many. There's so many founders out there. There's so many companies that I think are going to be, again, they're at the forefront of being targeted. They are at the forefront of building the innovative solutions that are going to help us, whether it's companies that are creating hypersonic rockets and helping us think about being on the cutting edge of that tech, or what the future of satellite technology and communications, resilience and infrastructure looks like, or the future of cybersecurity, leveraging AI capabilities, AI governance and responsibility, or the future of blockchain responsibility and privacy enhancing technologies, trying to shape what the future of money and dollar expansion and dominance looks like. All of those are issue sets that I care about, and so to me, that all of those areas are ones where I think that the future of warfare and strength are being fought on. I think that there's balkanization issues and accountability issues that are happening without and conversations that are happening in different silos, conversations around accountability and finance happening inside of those silos, separately happening in emerging tech, and then separately happening in internet infrastructure, and where conversations of things like platform accountability, like Section 230 and software liability are happening in each of those domains, but there's really not a crossover between those two. So not only am I intrigued by that because it's a fascinating technology and policy issue and implication, I want to make sure that companies are keeping track of and seeing where there's touch points for some of their companies to need to navigate the landscape with regulators and government, but also understanding what things look like to do abroad in global business. And then also I want policymakers to hopefully be able to be informed and engaged by. I'm doing some work again with regulators and think tanks to try to make sure that all of those landscapes and those mountaintops are being properly mapped, and where we're seeing where some of the greatest pitfalls can be, either for security or for a competitiveness angle. That's really, I think that there's a lot of natural tensions that are really driving the more and more we get digitized, and where economic and financial infrastructure and digital infrastructure are increasingly commingled, with a lot of functions that had traditionally been bifurcated are now running on the same rails. That has some really fascinating implications for policy and responsibility. Also, increasing the attack vector, right? Like on the digital side. So, and those darn squirrels, as Rags said.
Right.
So to me, that's where I think that we're going on the threat side, on the tech side. And I'm just thrilled that the work that I'm doing on investment and consulting and stuff allows me to be a part of it with some of the coolest companies out there.
All right, so what are you doing in free time? Because this is incredible. But do you actually have free time? I know we talked to Rags earlier that you read books occasionally, but what are you doing in free time, Carol? Because I'm like sitting here being like, wow, I wish I was in all those rooms. Granted, as I talk, you're probably sitting there saying the same thing about my history, but like it's just incredible what you've accomplished and where you want to go and what mission you have, right? It's just amazing. But you got to do something on your free time. So what is it?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I do love writing, and it's on all these things. So, like, there's like some pieces that I have done and will be doing on some of that. But also, like, I like playing D&D, and I'm a Dungeons and Dragons nerd. I'm a
No,
gamer.
you are not. Oh my gosh,
totally
I
am.
wish I'd known that. Greg, who was at the conference, I don't know if you remember Greg Silverman, but if not, he was the big talk. He got me to do. We worked at Silence together, and when I ran all the compliance there.
Yeah.
In one of the trips, he used to bring board games everywhere we went, everywhere. So we would be at dinner and he would whip out a board game and we would play it. Then there was a night where he convinced all of us to do a role-playing game. I had never done anything like that since probably I was like 12 when I did role-playing as like just a fun, like 12-year-old thing. And so he had myself, the CTO, the CIO, the CISO, and the head of legal all in a room doing role-playing games. It was fascinating that he convinced all of us. So Greg, if you're sitting here listening to this right now, I am talking about when we all sat there and played in the conference room with these tags and we had I don't know, it was fascinating. It was definitely an experience.
It's basically a war game, just instead of calling in for fires, you're casting chromatic orb. Like, you know, it's there's with your friends with fear normally involved. So like it's it scratches that itch. And I will say that I really picked it up during pandemic, especially like that was my social engagement. Like it got me through with a great group of friends being able to interact with each other remotely. So I loved it.
That's incredible. All right, Rags, you're up.
Okay, so I just want to riff a little bit on the games. Wait, so for whatever reason, people that have my same DNA are very competitive, like to the point of near violence, but you know, in an uplifting way.
Just a little bit.
And as it turns out, they married. My three kids are all, all formal, all served, or serving or served. One Army, one Air Force, one Navy. But they married spouses who are also crazy competitive. So there's nearly knife play in the context of just about any time we get together as a family, in the context of playing these games. And maybe not knife play, but either way. We do love our board games. All right, so more to the point of the question, which was what?
Well, that's right. Well, we can start. What are you doing with your life now? Where are you going? What's the mission, vision,
I'm playing games. No.
And then we got to talk about what you do for fun because, right, this is what it's about. We don't just work, right? Everyone's probably sitting here listening to me like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. We talk about the hard stuff, but then we talk about the fun stuff and the competitive aspect, right? Like there's all of those things. And I chuckle as you sit there and talk about the competitive aspects. My former husband, brilliant guy. Yes, he's my ex-husband. My family's extremely competitive as well, right? And we were playing spades and he never played spades before. And so he was my partner. And I think I almost killed him because he wouldn't play the game like strategic. I can see your face. You know exactly what I'm talking about. He kept doing whatever he wanted to do versus being strategic and counting the cards and all of these things. And he was like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do. I go, but we're a team. And my parents kept beating us. And I was ready to like go across the table and choke him out because you can't talk either during the game. So I was like, look at him like after I go, you better learn to play the rules and this game, go research it, because we are not losing to my parents tomorrow. I will never hear the end of it. My father and I have this $10 bill that we pass back and forth. Actually, I owe him a lot of $10 bills. So it used to be a bet. We would bet on something, and I was more than likely wrong as a kid. And so he's like, do you bet $10? And I go, I bet $10. I know I'm right. And he ended up being right. So I started framing the $10 bills, writing I win underneath it and handing it to him instead of, so he had the frames of the $10 bills with I win on them instead. And so yeah, right. So what are you doing? What's the mission? Where are you going? Because you're transitioning again. And then what do you do for fun?
So when I transition, I not looking for halos, but I have gone from one hard job right into the next job, typically with no time off. I'm like, oh, who needs stinking time off, And looking back, I don't have any regrets, but I do wish that I would have maybe taken a knee between jobs, just for the opportunity to kind of clear the brain and be ready for the next thing. I jumped right out of the frying pan into the fire kind of thing. But so this time I said, I'm not even sure what I'm going to do when I grow up once I left my last role. So I'm going to not sit around because that is, that's where dreams go to die. But I'm going to, take stock and really try to get my head around how can I continue to contribute, right? I've taken some pride in that. I felt like I've made a difference, right? One thing that was emphasized a lot in ONCD that was a little newish to me is, we're looking for national security, but it's inextricably linked to economic prosperity. And Carol alluded to this, right? Like we could, without economic prosperity, it's very difficult to do national security. So to the extent that the federal government, with a light hand, I think that's crucially important, can provide incentives that would maximize economic prosperity, that even those activities, which may not appear to be directly connected to national security, are actually national security grounded, right? So these you can't separate the two. If we don't have economic prosperity, that the American dream, if it does not continue to be viable, then we're not headed in the right direction. So to the extent that, the government can put in place policies, practices, procedures, and I'd say incentives, working the carrots, not the sticks as much, to encourage companies to not just to do better securing the infrastructure, but to create good paying employment for American citizens. And what that looks like, because I worry sometimes as we bring manufacturing back, we're not necessarily bringing a lot of jobs. Let's be honest. Let's just be honest. We're not necessarily bringing a lot of jobs. So I think there's a role for the government to incentivize with a light hand, because we've got to be competitive. We've got to compete, and we can compete. There's something, I'll say that's a very specific issue. Choking off China from chips, AI chips and hardware, wrong. Absolute fail. In my mind, and Carol, you could disagree, and I would like you to, but I think it's a fail because mother is the invention. Necessity is the mother of invention. And so what is China doing? They're designing around, they're building out perhaps their own chip design and fab capabilities. They are building models that don't require, but maybe with stealing of models, but that's another story. They're building models that don't require such enhanced AI architecture. So again, necessity, mother of invention. I think we are incentivizing China to not need our technology. And we're stealing profits from American companies that can no longer market their goods. So I'll say this as I can, because I think that's a wrong-headed approach. I think that we can do better, and we should compete. Like on a relatively, take our hardware, man. We're still, the epicenter of AI will still be Silicon Valley, even if we give you all the hardware. right? And that
We need
doesn't
to
mean
get
we
you
let
and
go of
Alan
work.
on this call together. I'm putting you and Alan on a call in like a few weeks together.
Okay. Well, that I think that's a mistake. I kind of went on a rant there, but it's like, and some China's doing that. We need to take into account the majority of the models that are developed there. It's not just DeepSeek. Everybody's heard about DeepSeek and vulnerabilities, and what did they get from OpenAI, and did they distill their models and all of that. But there's dozens of models that have been open sourced out of China, when the majority of our models currently, even, and I laugh about OpenAI, not so open. Like, maybe you should change your name to closed AI, right? And I say that, and I'm not in their space. They've got to make a profit. They got to compete. But at the same time, we have to, it's actually a threat to U.S., if you want to call it, dominance. And I think that we don't need to dominate, but we should lead. It's a threat to our leadership in the AI space that many of the China models are open sourced, where our models, at least the most capable models, are closed. Because I'm a data scientist now. I'm taking a postgraduate course at the University of Texas, and I'm building large scale models today and tonight, right? Because I felt like that's where I need to go in terms of learning and growing. But I can build models, but I can't build models directly on top of some of the closed models that are out there. I can extend them, but I can't tune them in the same way I can with the open models. So, I'm giving all sorts of advice to the government: stop cutting off the AI hardware, and to the companies, perhaps look at models where you're open, you're more open, maybe not completely open, but where you're more open. Okay, so, and where am I going? I got to answer the question.
I love it.
So I am doing a lot of the same things that Carol is doing, not as well, of course, as Carol. But I'm doing board work. I'm doing both board of director, board of advisors activities. Love that. Do a lot of kind of pro bono activities. I've got my consultancy. I have 26 clients, but only like 4 of them actually give me actual money. And what are the issues that are mattering to me? All the things we've been talking about here. Economic prosperity, that's a big issue, but to the extent that I can contribute to that, and of course, national security. But I'm very wired, very focused on any sort of veterans issues. I think the veteran population brings so much capability to the fight. And I think that there's been both incentives and disincentives to bring them into technology spaces. Some of those good, some of those wrong-headed, I'll say. I will tell you that the issue of nation-state enabled disinformation is not fully appreciated. I think we politicized it. We said disinformation is somehow a First Amendment issue, and it's not. If we're dealing with if it's nation-state sponsored disinformation, that's not a First Amendment rights issue. Hard stop. So just stop. Just stop calling it that. Now, to suppress the views of American citizens, American persons, absolutely, that's First Amendment infringements, but not trying to address the pernicious threat that is adversary-induced disinformation that is pushing Americans further and further to the extremes, that they are surgically targeting individuals in small groups with messages that will appeal to them, 90% truth, 10% disinformation, and they're moving us insidiously, increasingly to the fringes, so we can't even have conversations. That's a real threat to our democracy. It's an existential threat. So issues that address that, and I will tell you a particular, very specific issue that I'm working with some folks that are actually trying to address this, and that would be human trafficking, particularly exploitation of minors. I mean, to the extent that any of us could do anything to address that, just spirit-crushing set of circumstances where humans are trafficked, and even worse, children are subjected to unspeakable actions that will impact them and all those around them forevermore. We are better than that. And the beautiful thing is, with increasing, I believe, with increasing use of technologies, we could get not at the individuals at the pointy tip but these networks. Let's dismantle these networks surgically, and we can do this. We just have to have the will. And are we going to solve all the world's problems? No, but can we do better? Absolutely.
It's the same. Incredible background. What do you do for fun? Because I know you have 8 grandchildren, because you said that.
So I don't know if I want to admit this, but I garden. Like,
you have time to garden?
I love some damn flowers. I love flowers. I'm just going to put that out there. So all the trained killers of the world, like, Rags, really? I thought you were a trained killer. Yeah, I love my flowers. So I garden a lot, and no vegetables. Like, I'm not interested in vegetables. I do gardening and landscaping at scale.
Wow. Okay? So speaking of being a trained killer, I'm the opposite. Almost every plant that makes it in my house does not survive. So I've tried.
Okay.
Matt, if you want to come clean a yard up, I've got a lot of weeds and a lot of beds that need love, because I've had 0 time to do it between like conference and the application I'm building, and now I'm getting ready to go to Black Hat. I haven't actually looked at them, and my kids are like, Mom, when are you going to go do the garden? I go, I don't know. Why don't you guys do it this week?
Well, let me know, because if I'm out there with a great audio book in the headphones, and I'm hot and sweaty and dirty and grimy and making the world better, I'm good. I'm also I don't necessarily admit this, I'm a big bird guy now. I've got a whole bird sanctuary. I'm putting Carol to sleep here.
No, I'm laughing because there's a whole like meme right now about how, like, I guess mostly it's making fun of like elder millennial men right now. It's saying that like you get into one of like these things and it's like gardening, bird watching, pickleball, something else like that I've forgotten. So I'm just laughing at like Rags is having his millennial moment right now. I love it.
More time. So I'm reading like crazy until my eyes bleed. I'm gardening. I am bird watching, and I'm working out. And that's in addition. And I chased my bride, my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 43 years. Aww. We've known each other for 50 years. Chasing her around is also one of my favorite activities.
I think that I'm still sitting here being like, you're a trained killer who gardens and loves flowers and watches birds. Right now, I'm just like sitting here being like, we could have some fun over the weekend. Like, we could all hang out. I would watch you garden, and I would point out the birds for you.
Great. So party at Shannon's house. Yeah. I'll bring the board games.
There we go. It's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah.
Next event, board game and gardening. I'm in. I'm totally in. And I know a bunch of people that would totally join that one. But no, this has been amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I always have fun. But you know what I'm really hoping for is the highlights, because I told you guys this is being done on Restream or whatever the application is called. And they do this whole AI thing where they cut it out. And I really hope it comes back, Rags, and it bullets it out. It says, I love gardening. I just hope it does that. If not, I'm going to create a meme for you.
I want people to think,
I love gardening.
Rags, he's hard. That Rags is a hard man. That's what I want. But once they know I like birds.
The clip now, just saying that moment right there. That's the clip. Rags is a hard man.
That's the clip. I'm gonna die if it does it automatically. I'm just gonna message the two of you and be like, "Oh my gosh, it totally did it for us." AI bot, please make that happen. But anyhow, I truly do appreciate the both of you. I think you guys are utterly amazing, and I'm so glad to have met you. And now you're in my friendship book. So, but I'm looking forward to what we're going to do together in the future. So again, thank you everybody for having us. And handling my day 2 of LinkedIn Lives. More are coming, and sporadically, maybe they'll become consistent, but we're going to have some fun with this. I am teaching a class tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be live because it's 2 hours long, and I'm going to be teaching it all around digital awareness and where's your physical and your asset inventory. So really teaching people, as you guys are talking about the infrastructure, there's the physical component and there's the digital component, and people need to understand both of them. So we're going to dive into that, not as in depth as we talked about today, but more in a high level so that the everyday person can understand it. So anyhow, thank you everybody.